Tears of Gaia by Redback Spino. Chapter 26. Goodbyes and Homeward Journeys. The first thing Twilight noticed was just how heavy she felt. She strained with all of her might to lift or move her limbs, but they refused to bulge. And all of her body seemed to be tingling slightly, like when the blood flow just begins to return to a limb after having fallen asleep. Her eyelids flickered and twitched as she forced them open, only to squint against the bright light and close them again. Again, she opened them, slower this time, and all that was around her was blurring together in a silvery white mass of light. Gradually, her eyes grew accustomed to the light she saw in a soft white bed. A thick duvet draped over her. She was in a clean white room that looked very familiar. "Servatus," she whispered hoarsely. She tried to sit up, but felt a twinge of pain in her chest as she tried, falling back against her pillow from the strain. "I'd lie still for now, my dear Twilight." A deep, kind voice spoke to her from the side of the room. Craning her neck, she saw a most familiar blue cloak and white beard. "Star Swirl?" The old unicorn was seated in a silver armchair with dark green cushions at the far end of the room. He smiled and got up slowly, holding on to the armrest for support. "I'm glad to see you all awake at last. Stay in bed, though, if you don't mind. You cracked 3 ribs in that little tumble of ours, and even I ended up with a concussion and a sprained leg." He lifted up his left foreleg to reveal it wrapped in bandages and held in place with a metal splint. Twilight yawned. How long have I been out?"
2 days, Starswell replied. "You got the full force of that explosion head on. Honestly, it's a miracle you weren't hurt even worse."
2 days? 2 days? Twilight shot up again, grunting and gritting her teeth as she felt another pulse of pain shot out through her torso. But what happened? The blight? The tears? Where am I?
Shh. It's all right, Twilight. It's all right.
Starswell tried over and gently eased her back on the bed, sitting at her bedside.
We're back at your cottage in Servatus. The Griffins were kind enough to airlift us back here when they found us. As it turns out, that insane plan of yours actually worked."
Twilight's eyes widened. A smile grew upon her lips. "You mean we did it?"
"Indeed, my dear Twilight. The fortress of Berserker lies in ruins, and the blight is no more."
"But what about the tears?" Twilight asked, rolling to face Starswirl. "What happened to them in the end?" But before Starswirl could answer, the door beside his chair opened, and in rushed a pink blur. "Oh my God, Twilight, you're awake!" Pinky squealed with joy as she bounced up and down at the foot of the bed. "Hey, girls! Twilight's awake!" On cue, the 4 other ponies tried into the room, smiles of relief gracing their faces.
"Oh, Twilight, it's wonderful to see you awake."
"You had us worrying very bad when they found you at Starswirl. However did you survive that blast?"
"Every pony, please," Starswell retorted. "Give us some space to breathe."
The ponies stepped back a pace or two, but still gathered eagerly close to Twilight's bed. Twilight noticed that each and every one of them was alive and well. Some were a little worse for wear. Pinkie Pie's face bore many plasters covering up cuts and slashes. Rainbow Dash wore her left wing in a bandage and nursed a long gash along her withers. Rarity's right hind leg and tail were wrapped up in bandages, and Applejack's chest and flanks were covered in bruises and nursed a black left eye. The only one who appeared virtually uninjured was Fluttershy, and even she looked like she had not slept for days. "Girls," Twilight said, propping her head up on a pillow, "you're okay." "Yeah, more or less," Rainbow replied with a grin. "We're alive at least."
"We were so worried, Twilight."
Fluttershy stroked Twilight's mane gently.
"After we heard that you got caught in that massive explosion, you were knocked out for days. We didn't know what to think."
Rarity nudged her. "Still, you got yourself busy, didn't you? I'm Fluttershy, the battlefield medic." "But what happened?" Applejack asked. "Where did that explosion come from? What did you do?" All eyes turned to Twilight. "Well, I'm guessing you all saw that thing coming out of the tower, right?"
"How could we not? Ugh,"
Rarity replied, shuddering.
"Just the memory of that monster has been keeping me awake at night. But what was it?"
"As far as I know, it was the blight," said Twilight. "Or what happened if all of the blight's power was drawn together into one creature? It was somehow able to absorb all sorts of energy around it. So it was consuming all the blight things that were left out to feed itself and grow. Hence why it grew larger whenever we tried to attack it. It does absorb the energy of any magical attacks, using it to empower itself. I imagine if any pony tried to attack it head-on, it just would absorb the kinetic energy to the attack as well." before assuming whoever attacked it.
But what about the explosion?
Rarity asked.
How did that happen?
Twilight blushed slightly, hiding her face beneath her bangs. Um, that would be because I gave it to Tears of Gaia. You did what? Rainbow Dash shouted, leaping up entirely to her host. The others flinched and backed away, as he seriously sat back down again. Sorry, but that's completely nuts! So he has a point, Elzak added. We spent all this time trying to keep the tears away from those things, and then you just decide to feed it straight to them? I mean, it apparently worked and all, but what were you thinking? Twilight shied. Well, I guess in part, I was sort of desperate to stop it before it got any closer to you guys and the rest of the army. But still, I had a good reason for it. Starswell was right. That thing was absorbing all sorts of energy from everywhere, making it grow bigger and bigger. But here's the thing. Did any of you notice how slowly it was moving?
Starswell nodded. Indeed. It was only moving all the tower incredibly slowly, and even slower when it began absorbing the light things on the mountainside.
Exactly, Twilight replied. Not to mention its body was constantly changing shape and size, because it was adapting itself to the constant stream of energy it was absorbing. Even a monster like that needs to adjust itself to the massive amounts it can consume.
So, what does the tears do?
Twilight grinned slightly. It fed too much at once. When that thing consumed the tears, it basically released all of its power inside itself at once. It wasn't able to adapt to that much energy all at once. It was overwhelmed, and eventually it couldn't hold on to any more energy and exploded from the pressure. So, Rainbow Dash scratched her head. Does that mean the blight's gone then?
Starswell nodded. I believe so. Rarity, have the Griffins found anything yet?
Apparently not. They've been sweeping over the nearby land for any sign of the blight and haven't found anything. Not that I expect anything to be found. After all, that blight creature was the center of the explosion. With a blast that powerful, it was probably vaporized. So it looks like we did it. The blight is gone.
The party sat back as they digested this info. After everything they'd been through concerning the blight, it was hard to grasp it had been destroyed for good. And I'm guessing the tears are gone too. So much for bringing them back to Equestria, Rainbow said, resting her head on her hooves.
Ah, now that I'm not so sure about, Starswell countered, raising a hoof.
He pointed to the armchair that stood before them.
Miss Rarity, would you be so kind as to levitate that chair?
Rarity looked uncertainly at him, then to the chair. Shrugging, she fired up her horn, enveloping the silvery chair in her magical aura. Effortlessly, she lifted it off of the ground, flipping it over midair before righting it again and depositing it back on the ground.
Now, did you notice anything, Rarity? Starswell asked. By any chance, did that chair feel particularly lightweight when you lifted it?
Rarity nodded.
It did, actually. It was light as a feather. But what does that prove? It probably was just a lightweight chair or something.
But Starswell shook his head. It's carved from the same root as all the furs of Savanas, and that material is very heavy by hardwood standards. Under normal circumstances, you would have at least felt some sort of strain as you lifted it.
Twilight tapped her chin for a moment, before a beaming realization. Of course! Magic is just another form of energy, and you can't simply destroy or create energy, only convert it into other forms of energy, or contain a portion of it. That's what happened to the tears. Their power wasn't destroyed, it was just released!
But then, where is it?
Fluttershy asked. All around us, Twilight said, spreading her forelegs wide. I wasn't sure before, but when I woke up, I could feel a strange tickling all around me. It's magic. The magic of the others that was contained in the tears. When the blight was destroyed, it released all that energy. But now, without any container, it's been released back into the world.
A rather appropriate, I say, Starswell added with a wink. All that raw power was too much for any one creature of civilization to hold. So now that power has been added to the energy cycle. So instead, every single creature in the world gets to share a small portion of it.
Rainbow shrugged. And what does that mean?
Probably just that whenever any creature does that involves magic, they'll become slightly better at it. All unicorns, deer, or any other magic users will have slightly stronger magic. Pegasi will be able to fly a bit faster. Crops tended by earth ponies will be a little more abundant and fertile, that sort of thing. No one creature is all powerful all of a sudden. Everyone now just has the potential to be a little bit more powerful.
Oh my god. You mean theirs is gonna be faster? Oh, that is so sweet! Excuse me, I gotta go try a double rainbow. See you, girls! Each point dwelt upon this fact, and what it would mean for each of them. So, Twilight asked, what about the others? How did the battle go for everyone else? Rarity looked down.
Now, darling, we did win the battle, what with the blight being blown to bits and all, but it certainly wasn't easy. A lot of the others are severely injured, and the death count is staggering. The entire battlefield was like one blaze last night when they were burning the funeral pyres. Gellert and Gordon are in bed with broken wings, and even Yarrow's sprained an ankle.
Oh, thanks, Celestia. Gellert's okay. And Gordon, too. Thank you, Arthur. First, I muttered,
I visited him yesterday to keep him company.
Applejack chuckled. I found her still there by his side earlier this morning. I guess that explains the sleepless look. The other ponies chuckled. It felt like it had been too long since the last time they had a genuine laugh. For the rest of the morning, the ponies gave comforting but gentle hugs to Twilight. They exchanged small talk and stories about the battle, and simply reveled in the fact that, against all odds, they had not only survived, but they won. So then, Rainbow Dash asked, having perched herself on an armchair, with the tears gone and the blight gone, what are we going to do now? Twilight laid back, looking up at the ceiling.
Well, it'll be a while before I'm well enough to travel, but after that,
what do you girls say we head home?
First I smiled. Home? I can't wait. It's really been so long since we left. My little animal friends must be missing me so much.
Ooh, and Cat and Pumpkin Cake too! Piggy Pie giggled. I can't wait to see how much they've grown. And they'll be starting to harvest the South Orchard back at Sweet Apple Acres. Applejack replied, resting your chin on the bedside. It's almost cider season too. I'll need to get back in town for that. You and me both. Dash said with a right grin. There suddenly came a knock on the door. It creaked open, and in the doorway stood two large figures. Ah, Miss Twilight, you're awake, Garrett said with a smile. Glad to see you're doing well. Dwight Hart himself entered the room, to become slightly brighter by his presence. Indeed it is, and the same to your friends as well. How are you feeling? Twilight sat up, bowing her head slightly to the two newcomers.
I'm feeling all right, sirs. Just a few broken ribs. They should be fine soon enough. Thank you so much for taking care of us like this.
Dwight Hart chuckled. Well, what else would you expect? After your efforts in the battle, you and your friends are being hailed as heroes by my people. It might as well, added Gellert. After all this time battling the blight, and at last it's been defeated for good. 'Tis a good day to be alive! So I had to ask, how did she do it? Twilight sat him down as she and Starswirl explained to the Griffith and White Hart about how they stood in the end against the blight monster, facing it down and using the powers of the Tears of Gaia to overwhelm and destroy it. As he explained, the White Hart nodded thoughtfully. Yes. I did notice in the aftermath of the battle that the magical currents did feel a little strange, a little stronger. So then, the power contained in the gemstone is part of the world, where it belongs. Whiteheart smiled. I could not think of a feather used to it. Garrett walked over to Twilight's bedside. So then, once you're up at will, what are your plans? The unicorn shrugged.
Home, I guess. We've been away from Equestria for way too long. It's time we got back.
Whiteheart nodded. If you like, I can have some of my healers tend to your injuries. They have some spells that will likely speed up the healing process, so you'd be up and about by this evening, and well enough to travel by tomorrow.
That would be wonderful, thanks,
Twilight said with a smile. Gellert raised a clawed hand. A perfect timing for what my Griffiths have had planned. Ponies, on behalf of Azia, and I soon speak for Sylvanas too, I would very much like for you and your pony friends to join us at our victory feast, as the guests of honor. The 6 ponies looked eagerly to Twilight, who simply shrugged and grinned. How can we say no to that? That night, the valley was lit up by fires once more. But instead of the somber quiet of the funeral pyres that had burnt through the previous 2 nights, the land rang with the sounds of merriment and music as hundreds of small bonfires and cooking fires burned, surrounded and tended to by several thousand creatures. For the live reader, he is currently listening to the Yum song from Star Wars. After pouring liberations and raising many a toast to the fallen crown rats, ale and wine flowed freely, and makeshift tables creaked under the weight of all kinds of delicious food, having been flown in and conjured up for Sylvanas and Fazier over the course of the past few days. From the lighter and more leafy dishes of the deer, to the more stodgy and greasy dishes of the griffins, though they smartly left out any meat-based dishes. The cakes, provided by Piggy, creamy soups, steaming hot stew pots, bread of all shapes, also provided by Sugar Belle. Sizes and colors and cakes, pies, salads, cakes, filled with drinks of all kinds, ales and beers and deep red wine. Fruit juices of fabulous varieties, herbal teas, fizzy apple cider, and many more, too far numerous to count. The balloon animals were provided by party favor. And intersped between all this eating and drinking, festivities the likes of which the Southlands had not seen in years. Griffin set up impromptu stages and dance floors all around the feast, leading the partygoers in songs and dances of every variety. Of all the ponies, Pinky was the only one who managed to keep dancing through them all, leaping and twirling, bowing and kicking and whooping, leading the dance floor through song after song, playing on the guitars, drums, fiddles, flutes, and even that set of bagpipes from a previous party that showed up. Even the deer folk brought out particular stringed instruments, playing strange, ethereal ballads, taking the parties down to slower dances. Pinkie Pie even finally found a way to bring out DJ Pone 3. Let's rock this joint! As another of these songs drew to a close, Yarrow and Fireside bowed to each other and trotted over to their table, the highest table of the whole feast, where there sat not only the 7 ponies, but also Gideon and Whiteheart, as well as a few extra seats for anyone who the ponies invited to join them. With most of them tearing up the dance floor and going around the feast to meet the others, exchanging dance and congratulations for the hard-worked Fredry. So Fluttershy and Yarrow had all the table to themselves. Yarrow plopped down on the bench beside the Pegasus, pulling up a crisp green salad dessert.
It's wonderful we got to spend one last night together,
Fluttershy says he heaped herself a plate of the salad.
With Twilight and the men so quickly, it sounds like we'll be leaving tomorrow.
Well, I imagine you and your friends are eager to get home, right? He asked. Fluttershy nodded, absolutely mildly scuffing a tabletop before her.
Yeah, we are. But, well, it's going to be so strange after everything we've been through. Just leaving it behind and going back to Ponyville?
Yarrow nodded. I see what you mean. But now with the Southlands much more free and safe to travel about, I imagine things are going to be very different for Servatus. I heard the Whiteheart talking about opening up contact with other nations more, expanding trade routes, and allowing in more outsiders. I know that I, for one, would be very interested in exploring the world a bit, seeing what else lies out there, waiting. He placed a cloven hoof on Fluttershy's. Oh, and if you wouldn't mind, I would very much like to visit your native Equestria one day. She blushed, smiling underneath the loops of her hair.
Oh, I love that. You'll always be welcome to visit Ponyville. When do you think that would be?
Yarrow shrugged. Not certain. Sometime soon, I imagine.
If you can make it sooner than later, I appreciate it.
Fluttershy whispered, tentatively resting herself against the stag's shoulder.
I'm going to miss you when I leave.
Me too. He put a foreleg around her, drawing in her closer. And I promise it will be soon. But for now, let us enjoy the night that we have. Fluttershy nodded, wrapped her hose around his waist, pulling him into a gentle hug, and pressing her head against the warm, soft fur of his front. Yarrow stammered a moment before clearing his throat. Fluttershy, I have something to tell you. She looked at his face and saw the first signs of a blush creeping onto his cheeks.
What is it?
He nervously ran a hoof along the edge of the bench. Well, it's something I've been meaning to say for a while, but I never quite found the words. I'm still not certain I have the words.
Oh, my. Is he really? Go ahead, Yarrow,
Fluttershy said, sitting up.
Just say what comes naturally to you. I promise I won't laugh.
He smiled and coughed nervously. Taking out a small slip of parchment, he cleared his throat and read aloud in Deer's tongue. Your Lothan bin Niediran, Gramon in Golfigafoman. An euros I what they, the Lothan at Safatas Rothan Nin. Here, Badal Min, Naratas Kalin, Napathrothon. The father of what they destin. Perhamin Filathan, Latter das Sutar Ahid. La Yosoda Bethin, Gaston Le, Meletha Irodota Hate, and Rotota Adwain. He looked at Fluttershy, who closed her eyes, a content smile as he listened to the passage. Even now, she knew the dearest language sounded beautiful to her, the language of nature itself. When he stopped, she opened her eyes.
That was really pretty, but what did it mean?
He passed the parchment to her now, blushing even more. I don't know if I can say it straight up just yet. I translated for you at the bottom of the scroll. But before Fluttershy had a chance to read it, the sounds of laughter heralded the return of her friends. From one of the nearby dance floors, there stumbled Applejack and Rainbow Dash, both laughing uproariously and panting for the exertion of dancing. Right behind them was Pinkie Pie, still dancing merrily, with no signs of tiring alongside Rarity, who watched hoof and claw with Gellert, Last of all, Starstorm and Twilight. Young Unicorn still bandaged around her waist and walking a bit slower than usual. Come on, Applejack! Rainbow shouted, clapping the Earth Party on the back. You gotta sing that song of yours! Applejack fought back. Alright, Rainbow, alright, just this once. The ponies all sat down as Fluttershy quickly stowed away the parchment in her tail and turned eagerly to listen to their friend's song. I will eat pie pudding with that plain old grass and roots. For me, I thought's the way to grow with lots of nice sprouts and fruits. Take some good sweet apples, honey, thick and sweet, and golden crust, all the fit to buzz. Now there's the stuff to eat. Sing that to hay fried in a pan, served with tomato sauce. Unless you think it's better than an apple salad course. Sips out a pail of nice and clouded juice. Oh, ain't that just a dream? Surrounded by an apple pie, oh, with lots of friends with cream. This was but the first of many songs that were sung as the party carried on long into the night, until the fires burned low and the revelers laid down to sleep where they stood. The ponies huddled together to sleep, as Fluttershy and Yarrow slared one last hug and made their good nights. Everyone now very much ready for a good long rest. Rolling on her side, Fluttershy slit the parchment out of her thick tail, and in the low light of the campfire, read the translation of Yarrow's poem. Blushing profusely at the words, she held the scroll tight with a smitten face plastered on her face. That's so sweet, she muttered. Entirely at last, the veil of sleep fell over her as she drifted off into slumber. The next morning, the host of creatures was scattered once more on the plains, every creature dressed in their finest uniforms and armor. Many filled the valley from one side to the other, with a wide passage splitting the host down the middle. Deer, griffins, antelope, and diamond dogs mingled side by side, standing to attention. And at the far end of this passage stood the 7 ponies in a row. Before them stood King Gideon and White Hart, both dressed in their finest garb and accompanied by Galahad, Gellert, and Gordon.
My friends, Gordon said, his booming voice echoing across the plains. Here, in the witness of these brave and true soldiers, I wish to extend my most heartfelt thanks to all of you. Without your courage and strength, we may never have been able to defeat the Blight, and the Southlands would still live in fear of those yellow-eyed monsters.
Whiteheart spoke up next.
The dear folk of Servatus are in your debt, ponies, and to all who stand here. The battle was not easy, and many brave souls were lost. But as we said of those lost when our force was under attack, their sacrifice was not in vain. So I believe I speak for all when I say, thank you, dear pony friends.
The ponies turned around and could not help but smile as the thousands of grievers gathered before them raised a mighty cacophonous cheer. They waved and bowed humbly back. Twilight felt the White Hart's heavy hoof on her shoulder.
If there is anything you wish from us, ask, it is yours,
he said with a light smile.
Twilight thought for a moment. Well, it's a bit of a long way to Equestria, and the Southlands might be safer now, but there's still dangers out there.
Gideon bowed low to her.
It would be my pleasure to offer up a score of my soldiers to escort you to Equestria.
Twilight bowed back.
Thank you. And your Majesty? I heard my friends mention you were an old friend of Princess Celestia's.
That I was. A long time ago, the White Hart replied. Twilight asked,
Well, is there someone you could contact her? Inform her that we're on our way back? I imagine she and Princess Luna are probably very sick about us. Not to mention all our families,
Rarity said from the side. The White Hart nodded.
I'll inform her as soon as you left. And please know that you and your friends are always welcome to return to our lands. Are you and your friends ready?
Twilight looked to her friends. Each pony had been laden with party gifts the previous night, and they carried them with pride. Rainbow Dash wore her griffin armor with pride as Rarity stood beside her, wearing the cap, jacket, and cape of commander of a vizier. Fluttershy wore a simple green and silver dress, made for her by the dear Menix, as she had served alongside in the battle, carried by in a bag of assortment of sprigs of medicinal herbs that were native to Spartus. Pinkie carried her bag a pair of thick books, one full of recipes for traditional griffin confections, and the other was a songbook, full of classic ballads and ditties written by the residents of Griffintown. Cersei stood proudly, puffing out its new silver pipe, carved each from a branch of the silver trees of Servatus. And Applejack wore a fine woven cloak made by the antelope herd, emblazoned with beautifully ornate patterns and designs. Even a pony with as little interest in aesthetics or fashion as Applejack could not deny the craftsmanship of it. and Twilight herself smiled as she brought the small lacquered box in a bag, and the elegant, shimmering jewel to stand in within. It wasn't as stunning as the Tears of Gaia had been, but it was still a marvel to behold. And carved in the beds around the edge of the box, words of thank and friendship in the common script, and the Runicorn script, and the Deer script. The 6 ponies smiled back at her, and Twilight nodded to the 2 kings before her. They still bore a few wounds from the battle, but she could see it on their friends' faces. They were ready to go home.
Then, my noble warriors, Gideon booed, let us give one more cheer for Twilight Sparkle, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, Rarity, Pinkie Pie, Applejack, and Star Swirl the Building! Hail and farewell to you all! Hail and farewell!
Roared thousands of creatures over and over again, as the ponies drove proudly down the passage through the host, followed behind by a score of armored smiling griffins. Those in the foremost rows reached forward to touch the ponies as they walked past, eager to get a good look at the 7 heroes who helped liberate the Southlands. And as they strode through the host, and rounded the end of the bend at the end of the valley, Pinkie Pie could hold herself back no longer. She had been preparing a song since 2 days ago, and now was the perfect time. Standing to the front of the group, she held her head high and led them to the song of victory and homecoming. Plains green abundant, the mountains so high, wandering through the forest, flying through the sky. On we travel, following the call. Through fights and battles, we've gotten through it all. Through beauty or wonder, sorrow and fright, with dear folk of griffins in the hideous plight. Endless adventure, never did we fall, and now on our way home, we'll make it through it all. Through this journey we've held our own, now back to the hometown we've always known. One awesome adventure, we're still standing tall. This journey's ending and we've made it through it all. The Southlands echoed with her voice as he sang the song again and again, her friends joining in until the entire group, careful as he could, were joyously singing at the top of their lungs. Applejack also had a song. Applejack? Right. Land of bear, land of eagle, land that gave us birth and blessing, land that called us ever homewards. We will go home across the mountains. We will go home, we will go home. We will go home across the mountains. We will go home, we will go home. We will go home across the mountains. The journey was fairly easy. The Griffins carried plenty of detailed maps of the Southlands, so navigating the safest and most direct path was simple enough. The group traveled across the land in high spirits and good weather, and found themselves greeted every now and again by some local who had heard word of the great battle against the Blight, and the part the 7 ponies played. The second night of walking, the group even found themselves roped to a local festival going on in the small village of ponies, who insisted they stay the night, and regaled them with tales of adventure. This town was, of course, owned by one Starlight Glimmer, but that story is another adventure in its making. As they finally traveled across the Macintosh Hills, they bid the Griffins return farewell, and watched as they took to the skies and flew back south towards the frontier. Then, later in the afternoon, they reached the peaks that bordered the Southlands, and found themselves looking at a sight they had not seen in over 2 weeks of hardship, strife, and adventure. For hundreds of miles stared to stretch before them, vast forests, swamps, and plains, rolling hills and rivers, and snow-capped mountains. The thin lines of railroads that snaked across the land, cutting through forests and winding around mountainsides. Small settlements dotted the landscape, and in the center of the vast land there stood a short mountain range. Atop the highest peak sat the mighty city of marble towers and golden spires that was Canterlot. And in the shadow of the mountain sat a tiny, but oh so familiar town of white thatched buildings. Equestria, Twilight said, a tear of joy running down her cheek. We finally made it! Firesight peered out at Ponyville in the distance. But Ponyville still feels so far away.
We could probably make it there by tomorrow afternoon, Applejack replied. So, girls, y'all ready to head home?
They needed no second bidding. They hiked enthusiastically through the day and long into the night, until the moon was high in the sky and they set up camp one last time, on the rim of Rambling Rock Ridge, the rocky quarry that sat on the outskirts of Ponyville. That day started off like any day in Ponyville. The cockerels crowed, and the young fillies and colts were sent on their way to school. Mail was delivered, and the ponies went about their everyday lives. But after noon, any pony who was out and about the outskirts of town bore witness to a surprising sight. Into the town there strode 6 fairly familiar young mares: Twilight Sparkle, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, Applejack, Rarity, and Rainbow Dash. Wherever it was that they had wandered off 2 weeks ago, they were apparently back, with a newcomer, if the strange old stallion in the blue coat was any indication. But what in Equestria were they wearing? Pinkie Pie and Twilight looked normal enough, but Applejack was dressed in some bizarre cloak covered in strange woven designs, what looked vaguely familiar to something Sakura might have hung in their hut. Fluttershy blushed as her elegant green dress drew many a curious eye. But that was nothing compared to the bizarre cape and rare jacket Rarity was wearing. And what was that? Was that Rainbow Dash wearing armor? They strolled into town, some of them recoiling from the attention, while the others simply smiled and nodded. Heh! Looks like they're in all of our awesome uniforms, Rainbow said to Rarity with a smirk. Rarity smiled and bowed eagerly to a bemused onlooker.
Apparently so, though it probably doesn't help that we've been gone so long. So then, Twilight, what's new from here?
Twilight turned to the group.
Well, I was thinking of heading back to the library, but you guys are free to go wherever you want. How about we meet up at Sugar Cube Corner later for tea or something?
Sounds good.
See you there! The cookies will be on me! Pinkie Pie cheered. Oh, I'll bet Gummy will be excited to see me!
So the group departed, Fluttershy heading to her cottage while Rainbow Dash flew off to her cloud house. Rarity headed for the boutique, and Pinkie Pie bounced off merrily to Sugar Cube Corner, and Applejack trotted towards Cedar Apple Acres, where no doubt heartfelt reunions awaited all of them.
So, Star Swirl, care to see my library?
Twilight said, heading toward the massive tree. The old unicorn smiled and followed. I cannot wait, my dear Twilight. The door of the library creaked open, and the 2 unicorns stepped in. The old place was exactly as Twilight left it. Books were all neatly stacked on their shelves, candles stood on small wooden desks, and tables around the wooden sculpture of a pony's head in the center of the room. All in all, everything seemed very well kept.
Hold on! Give me a sec! Be right out!
Twilight froze in a spot as he heard that voice. A voice that, several times in her familiar adventure, she was unsure she would ever hear again. Spike emerged from the kitchen, yanking a strayed and birthday broom over his head.
Sorry about that. I was baking something. Now, how can I help?
He froze on the spot as the 2 ponies came into view. The apron slipped from his grasp, and his eyes turned to pinpricks. Silence reigned supreme in the library as Twilight and Spike stared back at each other. Starswirl looked from one to another in confusion.
Twilight, why is there a dragon hatchling in your library?
But before he could receive an answer, he was bowled over as Spike rushed straight at Twilight and grabbed her with both arms and wrapped her firmly around her.
Twilight!
He cried, holding her tight.
You're back! Where the heck have you been? I've been worried sick about you and the others. Why didn't you try to contact me or let me know how long you were gone? Where were you?
Twilight stroked his head, Spike, effectively with a hoof.
Shh, it's all right, Spike. We're home, safe and sound, and I'm sorry we took so long. But where were you guys? Spike asked with squary eyes. I thought you were just traveling up north, and when you guys didn't come back after a week, I thought...
But his words were muffled as he buried his face in Twilight's fur. She hugged him close, unable to hold back her own tears. It felt like they hugged silently for hours, save for the occasional sniffle or whimper from one or both of them, before Twilight finally said something.
I know. I didn't mean to take so long, but, well, things sort of got in the way.
He sniffled.
Things? Like what?
Twilight got up, hoisting the little dragon onto his feet.
I'll explain later, but first, I got a letter for you to send to Princess Celestia.
She levitated a small scroll out of her saddlebag and passed it to Spike. In a puff of green flame, it was burnt to smoke and on its way.
Hopefully she's not too busy today. I'd very much like to speak to her in person. I've got some rather big news for her after all.
Twilight? Spike tugged his tail gently.
Speaking of big news, who's this guy?
She turned to Starswirl, who had been occupying himself with bookshelves that lined the library walls. Noticing their eyes upon him, he turned and tipped his hat off.
Yes. Good afternoon, young sir. Spike, was it?
Spike, Twilight said proudly, I'd like you to meet Starswirl the Bearded.
Spike's jaw dropped. Silently, he padded over to Starswirl, peering closely at him. Then, stepping back to take him all in. He paced around him, examining his cloak, tail, beard, and becoming more and more gobsmacked as he did.
But how? Starswirl? Alive? What?
Twilight grinned. It's a long story, Spike. I'll explain once we get a reply from the princess. As if on cue, Spike rests and belts up a gout of smoke which formed before him and sealed in a scroll. Unfurling it, he read aloud. My dear Twilight, I am overjoyed to hear that you are home safe and sound. I am on my way to see you right now to hear what I will no doubt be a very interesting tale you have to tell. See you very soon, Princess Celestia. That was quick. More seconds later, there was a flash of light outside the door, followed by a gentle rapping sound. Spike opened the door and dutifully stepped aside as in stepped Princess Celestia.
Princess Celestia!
Twilight bowed low before her. But no sooner bowed has he felt Celestia stoop down before her and embrace her in a warm, gentle hug. She could not help but hug back.
My dearest student,
Celestia whispered, her voice cracking with joy.
Welcome home.
Twilight stepped back and smiled deeply.
You have no idea how good it is to see you, Princess. Feels like it's been so long.
The unicorn smiled back with a smile that could light up the night.
I'm sure it has. But what about your friends? Are they all well?
Twilight nodded, heading out the door.
They're all fine. In fact, I was just about to head to Sugar Cube Corner to join them for some tea. Will you be joining us? If it means I can hear about your travels, I will gladly join you for tea.
Celestia replied, tucking low under the door frame.
It probably makes sense to hear the story from all of them. Spike, Star Swirl, are you coming?
It would be my honor, Your Majesty.
Get me in too! I'm still waiting on an explanation about the whole Star Swirl Son of the Life thing! That evening, Sugar Cube Corner played host to a most peculiar tea party. Mr. and Mrs. Cake were frantic with surprise as Princess Celestia entered her shop, eager to put on a good show for the royal guests, along with their 8 other diners. Mrs. Cake had to stop the pumpkin from gumming on Celestia's tail. Celestia only giggled at that. Breaking out the long dining table, they settled themselves in a private corner of the shop, rushing out with trays of freshly baked cakes and a steaming pot of tea. Spike and Celestia sat down with their undivided attention as Twilight began to tell their tale. She told of her discovery in Canterlot Archives, their hiking out into northern Equestria, their first encounter with Morgoth and his gang. Celestia was particularly intrigued by her description of Roanoke, but let her carry on. Spike nearly fainted with fright as Rainbow detailed her little encounter with the Kelpie, the Timberwolves, and Starswirl coming to their rescue. It was here that Celestia took the time to explain Starswirl's presence to Spike. Needless to say, the idea of a resurrect spell greatly intrigued him, as well as Twilight. But they carried on their story, detailing how they met Tharos, and he led them to the strange place where they met the Tears themselves.
But what was that thing? Rainbow asked. I'm still freaked out by it! That massive big guy looming over us?
Celestia chuckled.
If her eye alone disturbs you, you should see the rest of her.
Her? Her? He then shared a sad moment as they recollected Tharos' demise and their separation. Applejack pitched into her side of the story. Spike bristled in fury as they recounted what the Blight put them through as their captives, until Yarrow and Steer rescued them. They then laughed and cheered as Twilight explained how Rarity soundly defeated Geller in his own games, becoming a commander in the process. And finally, they came to the story of the final battles of the Blight, and the final sacrifice its Starswirl had to make to destroy once and for all.
I see, Celestia said, putting her teacup down. So, the tears are gone then?
Twilight nodded, looking down.
I'm sorry, Princess. I was hoping we could bring it back to Equestria. I figured it could be useful for you and Princess Luna. Or at least you want to see it, seeing how you were actually there when it happened.
But Celestia put a hoof on her shoulder.
I appreciate the thought, Twilight. But in the end, I think you did the right thing. And it isn't easy to just let go of that much power when you have it at your disposal. And having that much power at once does lend itself to certain abuses. Returning the power to the world's magic was the best thing for it.
Thanks, Princess, Twilight said, smiling at her. Oh, and seeing as we did just release a contained power of several godlike beings at once, things might get a little weird down in the Southlands. The princess laughed.
Duly noted. It's nice to hear that my old friend, the White Heart, is doing well for himself. He and I were good friends when we were younger, you see.
Applejack raised a hoof. But Princess, one of the deer told us about how the White Heart had some sort of personal vendetta against the Black, but they never found out just what. Do you happen to know anything about it? Celestia thought deeply for a moment, then tried.
Not that I know of. To be perfectly honest, I haven't actually seen him in person once he left to lead the deer folk. It's still a mystery to me as well. I should really write to him or visit sometime. But for now, I'm afraid I must go. Royal duties and all. However, there is one more matter to attend to.
She looked past Twilight to Starswirl, who was taking a sip of tea. Twilight looked from one to the other.
Princess? Star Swirl, now that your task is completed, are you ready to go?
The old unicorn slipped up his hat and popped up his head. That I am, Celestia.
Wait, go? Go where?
Twilight then remembered.
Oh, you were only staying until your task was over.
And my task was to see that you and your friends completed your quest and got home alive and well. He replied, with that complete, it's time for me to return to my rest.
He got up to join Celestia by the door. Twilight grabbed his cloak but stopped him. But wait! Does it have to be so soon? There are many more things I wanted to ask you. He looked back at her with his kind but tired eyes.
Well, Twilight, I suppose some things will remain a mystery for now and then. But sometimes the mystery is more fun than the end result.
Twilight stood up before him and held out a hope to him. I'm going to miss you.
And I will miss you, Twilight Sparkle. You are truly a unique mare. You and your friends are lucky to have you. And one more thing. I have this spell book, and one unfinished spell that I could never get right.
Really?
Yes, it's my greatest failure. My apologies. But I bet if you worked hard enough and actually read through the spell, I bet you can find some way to make this spell work.
Well, what is it supposed to do?
It's supposed to allow you to see through the eyes of another pony and try their skills and their own cutie marks. However, I can never get the spell quite right. I can only imagine that great things will happen to the pony who can solve that spell.
Well, I would actually like to see that journal.
Well, I do have it, Twilight. Remind me next month to give it to you.
Really? Celestia, you'll let me try that spell book?
Yes. I can only imagine what will happen when you finally solve that spell.
Ah, so you see it too.
I've seen her potential since the day she got her cutie mark. She will make a good princess.
He took her hoof, and they shook. But Twilight could not restrain herself, and rushed forward to grab the old unicorn in a hug. Starswirl staggered back with surprise, but steadied himself and hugged back.
Take good care of yourself and your friends.
They broke off the hug, and Starswirl gave a deep bow to the ponies.
Well, I suppose this is farewell to you all. It has been an honor to travel alongside you all, and I hope you all live long and well. But as for myself, I think I've earned my eternal rest.
Indeed you have, Starswirl, Celestia replied with a smile. The ponies gave their goodbyes, some longer than others. They had to physically pry Pinkie Pie off of him. But soon he gave one final bow, before sweeping his big blue hat back upon his head, and followed Celestia out the door.
Mr. and Mrs. Cake, thank you again for your hospitality,
Celestia called as he left. Mrs. Cake giggled nervously to herself as she tugged her apron.
Oh, well, any time, your majesty. It's an honor to have you.
And with one final wave and a flash of golden light, Celestia and Starswirl were gone, leaving the 6 ponies and 1 dragon at the table. Twilight breathed deep and sat back down. So, Rainbow said, taking a sip of tea, Blight's gone, Tears are gone, Starswirl's gone, and we are back home. Hey, does anybody feel like, I don't know, unsatisfied? Elzek nodded.
Well, yeah, I know what I mean. It's like it's not quite sunk in that it's all over.
Of course, it would help if I had any more screen time.
Well, we did just finish a 2-week quest that ended up defeating an eldritch abomination from beyond the dawn time.
Pinkie reasoned, bringing up another batch of cookies.
It's a lot to take in.
Verity giggled.
That's true. But still, oh, I don't know. I guess I was expecting a bit more fanfare for returning home from all this. That must sound egotistical of me, but it is how I feel. We get that grand send-off from the Griffiths and Deer, come home and well, this feels like it's back to business as usual.
He just nodded, none of them wanted to say anything for fear of coming across as greedy or attention-seeking. But it was the fact of the matter. You all come back from this great venture to help a war against a deadly foe, and no pony in Ponyville seemed much more than curious about where they had been all this time. Twilight stood up. I admit I do feel kind of the same way, but I'm not really all that fussed. Just because other ponies don't know or care about what we've been through doesn't make it any less of a fact that it happened. Well, yeah, good point. Applejack said with a nod. We went on a grand adventure and did all the mighty impressive stuff, and we don't need anybody else's help to validate that for us. And besides, Twilight said, sitting back down, looking to her friends on either side for her before raising her teacup. We did gain something from all this. Gifts aside, we gained new friends. We gained new knowledge about other lands and the history of our own homeland. And I don't know about you girls, but I certainly gained a greater appreciation of all of you. We've been through adventures, war, sorrow, captivity, and we come out together. Even through the worst of adversaries, having you girls as friends by my side have made it a whole lot easier. Jose raised her cup as well.
In fact, I like to think this whole adventure has brought us that much closer as friends.
The other ponies raised their teacups gently against hers. I'll drink to that! The ponies drank in deep in silence as he felt relief and relaxation that washed over each and every one of them. After every ordeal and conflict, it was finally over. They were home again. The end. Epilogue. 6 months later. Spike! Where did you put those old alchemy books I asked about? Spike flipped through a comic book as he sat in a beanbag in the library. Over on the desk where you wanted them. Twilight sorted through the piles of books on her desk until she finally found the book she had been looking for. Slipping it onto her shelf, she smiled with satisfaction at how light the book felt. The tear's effects on the magic of the world were still very much apparent after all this time. It was not anything big, just a lot of little things. Levitation's easier, teleportation requires less exertion, she was mastering new spells in one or only two attempts, as opposed to the 3 or 4 she normally does. The magic of the world in general was that much stronger. She took a moment to dwell upon how things had changed since their adventure had ended. For her friends, it was pretty much business as usual by now, but for each of them, there were some small changes. Applejack had gotten back to her work at Sweet Apple Acres, though many ponies visiting noted how sometimes she could be seen proudly wearing her strange woven cloak while she worked. Sukaku Cora's patrons celebrated the return of Pinkie Pie, as he worked quickly enough, though the bakery now had a new shelf dedicated to strange exotic dishes Pinkie had begun to bake. Every now and then, also, customers could hear Pinkie singing some peculiar new songs while she worked on happily in the kitchens. Rainbow Dash was as competitive and thrill-seeking as ever, though she rather quickly turned down any offer of trips to swimming holes or river trips. She was quick to show off her Sue Griffin armor to any pony who came to visit her cloud home. Rarity, on the other hand, had not only returned to normal, but was flourishing. It appeared that her brief stint as a military commander had helped her develop a new marketing strategies for her selling her wares, competing with other fashion designers, haggling with clients, as well as a notable range of clothes that with a decent military look to them. It had been the talk of Fashion Week in Manhattan a few weeks ago. Surrey Polymere was so jealous. Fluttershy still liked to reminisce on the days of the adventure. She was in the library at least 1 week, reading any books she could find with information about the dear folk of Servatus. At least twice, Twilight had been on her way to visit Fluttershy at her cottage, and overheard her singing or speaking aloud to herself in Dearest, as she would tend to her new herbal medicine pads, or simply sit in her backyard, gazing off into space. And as for her, well, she had a new set of wings. She was still daydreaming about the all-too-brief weeks where she had the opportunity to work alongside Star-Swirled and Bearded, her greatest hero. But otherwise, she had gotten eagerly back to working at her library. The adventure had been fun, and she had always missed her books. And of course, there was that little box on her dresser, a simple emerald that sat inside. A little memento from some truly extraordinary creatures. As she reminisced, she gazed out the window and saw a strange pair of creatures in the town square. They appeared to be approaching several ponies who were in the square, asking them something. Recognition glowed in her heart as she saw that one of them seemed to be clad in a dark blue dress. Once she got to the door square, she skated to the halt as she saw the 2 figures who turned and spotted her, waving with delight. Ah! Twilight Sparkle! There you are! Called Roanoke, turning over as quick as her creaking limbs could carry her.
Roanoke? Twilight gasped. What are you doing here?
Yellow Mare cackled.
It's been too long since these old eyes saw you, Twilight. I missed you and your friends, so I decided to pay a little visit. And as luck would have it, I ran into this young fella. Said he's a friend of yours.
Twilight turned to the other and gasped. Clad in a fine green tunic, woven with golden trim, was none other than Yarrow, looking slightly larger and older. Even his antlers seemed to have grown a bit.
Yarrow? Oh, Yarrow! Roanoke! It's great to see you two.
May go in, friend Twilight, Yarrow said with a bow. I was traveling through Equestria, so of course I had to visit Ponyville. It's wonderful to see you, too. How have you been? Twilight eagerly shook their hooves.
Oh, I've been pretty good, thanks. I've been busy, certainly, tending to the library and all, but what about you two? We all have so much to catch up on. I don't doubt it, Roanoke replied. But I'm a bit hungry for the trip here. You got anywhere we could get a bite to eat?
Twilight grinned. I know just the place. Follow me, Yarrow. You coming? The stag smiled back. I'd love to, but I'll join you two later. For now, could you just point me to Fluttershy's house? Yarrow took a long, deep breath through the crisp afternoon Ponyville air. It had a very different feel to Servatus, which always came across as very chilled and clean. But out here, in the true nature of Equestria, it was truly a wonderful feeling. Walking over a small bridge, he chuckled depressively as he spotted a small sod cottage just ahead. Of course, he thought, where else could she be? Taking another deep breath to calm his nerves, Yarrow tapped on the door to the cottage. Herman started hearing a muffled, "Be right with you!" Before the latch clicked, and the door creaked open softly.
Yes? Who is it?
Asked a familiar, timid voice. An old friend, Yarrow replied with a grin, who's been traveling a long way to visit. The door swung open fully, and Fluttershy stepped out onto the porch. As she froze in her tracks as she saw the familiar stag-smelling air.
Yarrow?
Hello, Fluttershy. Fluttershy could not stop herself as she hurried towards and grabbed Yarrow in a tender embrace.
I was wondering when I'd see you again,
she whispered in his ear as they hugged.
It's lovely to see you.
And you as well, he replied. I would have come sooner, but work has kept me busy.
Oh, well, come inside. You can tell me all about it.
Moments later, Yarrow was sitting at a dining table, a cup of tea resting before him. He breathed deep with the fragrance and a satisfied sigh. Is that darling tea? He asked. As he poured him some cream and deposited a cigarette bowl on the table.
Why, yes it is,
she replied proudly.
I also got mint tea, oolong tea, green tea, chai tea. I, become a bit of a tea nut since I got back home.
He chuckled. Apparently so. It sounds like I've rather rubbed off on you. Well, you brew it well, Fluttershy. Fluttershy blessed him for the compliment.
Thank you. So, Yarrow, what brings you to Equestria? I mean, I'm guessing you didn't come all this way just to stop by for tea, right?
Yarrow sat in his seat. Well, that wouldn't have been out of the question. I really have missed you. Their eyes met briefly, but that's long enough for butterflies to rise in the Pegasus' stomach.
I've missed you too.
But you're right, there is another reason. You see, since the Findom were destroyed, things have been very different in Servatus. They've probably opened up their borders for the first time. No more secrecy, the White Hearts decree. We're being open with the other lands. For one thing, it's meant trading goods with neighboring settlements. You wouldn't believe how much some creatures will pay just for a sliver of our silverwood.
Well, it is beautiful.
Fluttershy took a dainty sip of her tea.
What about the whole relationship with the Griffins? Has anything come from that?
Well, nothing concrete yet, Yarrow replied, but we're definitely making progress. King Gideon has put in a good word for the Deerfolk with the Griffin Kingdom, so now we're in new talks about a peace treaty, and maybe opening trade routes with each other. And with all this trading and talking with other civilizations, the White Heart has been sending out researchers to study aspects of these other lands, to see what they may have to offer, that sort of thing, including, among many others, yours truly. Pegasus beamed.
Oh, congratulations! So this is what you mean when you said that your work has kept you busy?
The stag nodded, taking another sip of the rich tea before continuing. Indeed, I've been on a business trip around the nearby lands, looking for new medical techniques and healing herbs that we could use back at Servatus. And after my work in the Southlands, where better else to go than Equestria? A useful business trip and a perfect opportunity to see the village that is, to see you. His face flushed a deep crimson red, and suddenly became very interested in his tea. First, I could not help but smile at his bashfulness.
You know, she said timidly, the poem you wrote for me? I still have it.
Really? He looked into her eyes after all this time. She nodded, shuffling around the table to sit closer.
I read it to myself sometimes. I've almost got it memorized, the dearest version in translation. I wasn't so sure I'd actually see you again.
Fluttershy began to blush as well, looking down at her foreheads. Two were silent for a moment. Neither of them were all that certain what to say. Wordlessly, Yarrow placed the flutterhoof on Fluttershy's, and she looked up into his eyes again. He smiled at her, and she could not help but smile back, before holding him close to her forelegs.
I'm just so happy to see you,
came her muffled voice from Yarrow's chest fur.
So, how long are you visiting for?
Well, Yarrow gently pried himself loose from her hug for a moment. That brings me to a slightly awkward question. You see, this research trip of mine here in Equestria
It's a rather long term, and, well, this is rather silly of me. I never got around to arranging for a place to stay. Fluttershy felt her heart racing.
Was he about to ask what I think he's about to ask me?
So, I was wondering, I mean, if it's not too much trouble, would it be alright for me to, you know. But it was silence, and Fluttershy bowled into him. Knocking him onto the floor, she hugged him tightly.
Oh, yes. Of course you can move in with me, Yarrow. It's a wonderful idea. Oh, we can have so much fun together. We could try all sorts of teas, grow herbs together, and...
Yarrow chuckled. Well, actually, I was going to ask you if you can help me find somewhere to live in Ponyville. But you know what? This works even better. So if it was all possible, Fluttershy blushed an even deeper red.
Oh, I mean, well, I care about you, so of course I'd have to let you stay with... Oh, my.
She trailed off into nervous giggles, leaving the two lying on the floor together. So, what do you want to do now? Fluttershy's eyes met his once again, reviving the fireflies in her stomach that had just been starting to calm down. Fluttering her eyelids, she inched closer to him.
I can think of a few things.
As he leaned in, her muzzle coming closer to his, she stopped and came a gurgling, rumbling noise from her stomach. She grinned sheepishly at Yarrow.
Sorry, I haven't had any lunch yet.
Come to think of it, Yarrow replied, I haven't actually eaten early this morning, and I've been on the road all day. The two looked at each other and nodded with understanding. I'll get us another pot of tea.
I'll start putting some scatters of salad from the garden.
As he got to work, Yarrow watched her with a smile, half amused, half smitten. This is going to work out just fine. Meanwhile, in Sugar Cube Corner, Twilight and Roanoke sat around a table. The old pony swigged from a bottle of sarsaparilla as Twilight regaled the story of her journey after she and her friends departed from Niagara Falls. Roanoke was eagerly asking questions about and following along with the story, wanting to hear as much as possible. Twilight never had such an attentive audience before. And, well, half a year later, here we are. She finished her tale with a deep sip of cocoa. Roanoke nodded thoughtfully.
Well, sounds like you have quite an adventure.
Oh, you have no idea, Twilight said, sitting back to relax. But still, things seem to have returned to normal easily enough, though every pony's taken something from it all. And I got a new pair of appendices. Flap. The old mare sighed.
Well, sometimes that's all you need, no?
Twilight nodded. Exactly. We might not have come back laden with bags of treasure, or some super powerful new artifact for Equestria or anything, but still, I wouldn't change anything that happened for the world. We've gone through a lot. We've also learned a lot. Sure, it was tough at times, and scary, but worth it in the end. In the end, I guess that's enough of a treasure for me.
How very deep of ye,
Roanoke chuckled, taking another swig and emptying her bottle.
Wish I could say I'm as busy as y'all, but not so. I've had some pretty interesting visitors recently, though.
Twilight got from the table. Well, let me just finish us another of these delicious sponge cakes. You can tell me all about it.
You got it, she said with a nod. It's all right. It's good to see you safe and sound, princess.
Glad to be back. And please, just Twilight, Twilight replied. The old mare watched as Twilight headed off to the counter. With a twinkle in her eye, she turned and smiled at you.
Me?
Well, audience, I think she's smiling at you guys, too.
Sir, I'm glad to see what she's doing right after all this time,
she said to the audience.
She and her friends went through quite a bit and come out stronger and wiser than ever. Well, that about does it. Wraps the whole thing up. Things seem to work pretty good for Twilight and her friends. Not to mention me for a pretty decent deal, eh? Now, I'm not sure she's aware of y'all out there hearing this story. But if she did, I'm sure she'd appreciate you sticking around as long as you have.
Oh, don't mention it, ma'am. I love to read these type of stories, and this was a pretty good ride.
You're welcome. Takes a lot of dedication to want to stick by her. Found out where she go next, what adventures she run into.
Hey, that's part of the fun.
Isn't it, though?
Roanoke paused a moment, chuckled.
Oh, look at me, rabbit along like the old coot I am.
Hey, no problem. Ramble on all you want, ma'am. That's what we do best.
So funny, when you've been going on as long as I have. Once you got an attentive audience, you don't want to stop talking. But I'll let you all be on your way now. And, martial art fruit user, I'll let you start the review in a few minutes. I hope you enjoyed yourselves.
I did, ma'am.
See you on the trail.
Good luck to you, too.
And, martial art fruit user, good luck on the review.
I will. See you out in the trail. Roanoke did turn to Mrs. Cake as he passed. Say, miss, be a dear and get me some more of that good old sarsaparilla. The true end. And on to the review. This fic was a blast. I will not lie. The grammar and the prose, as usual with these type of fics, is pretty dang good. This was self-edited, so I'm pretty impressed that he was able to not do that many mistakes. There were, but nothing too distracting. It was more like just teeny things, like some misspellings or some bad comma splicing. But overall, the grammar, perfect. I also quite enjoyed the pacing, if I'm to be honest. Considering the fact that the Tears of Gaia are the title of the story, I was totally not expecting the main six to find the item in the first place. Or so soon, only 9 chapters into the story. I was not expecting to see the Tears of Gaia. I was heavily expecting it to be near the end, and somewhere close by to the Blight, not, 9 chapters in. On the other hand, this did give us a chance to have 10 chapters dedicated to meeting the griffins and the deer, and then another 9 chapters dedicated to the war. This thus makes the Tears of Gaia sort of similar to the One Ring, and that is no problem. Well, at least to me, I don't see it as much of a problem, because even though the Tears of Gaia weren't used like you expect them to, their presence made it worth it. Because let's not forget, the One Ring, if you look at it, technically all it did was just tempt you to using it. And for Frodo and Bilbo, all it did was just make you go, boop, turn invisible. And I bet if you didn't watch it long enough, you probably would ask yourself, okay, Sauron could turn invisible. What else could that ring do, even with its power? And it's only later you start to realize what it can really do. The same for the Tears of Gaia. While we didn't get to know exactly what exactly the Blight could have done with them, we did know that they had immense power. And the fact that all unicorns around them were subdued by it really gave the Tears this huge, beautiful intimidation factor, making you realize that, yeah, maybe we might not get to see exactly what you can do with it, but its presence is there, and we know that we can't let the Blight have it. Also, like I said, the first part was evenly paced, and so was everything else, because this gave us a chance to build up anticipation for the Tears, and then the next 10 chapters gave us a chance to breathe and start hoping, okay, when can we see them? When will they get back together? When will they get back? Yay, they got back together! 10 chapters. And then the next 9 were preparations and the war, which also got us pumped, ready to see it, and excited to see the final battle. Speaking of the final battle, that's another thing I love. The whole entire war sequence of that last chapter, after so much build-up, including people getting the antelope and the diamond dogs, was glorious. While nowhere near as epic as Fallout Equestria's beautifully done war sequence, this was just as awesome. Frantic, madcap, and plenty of scenes where we got to see the Griffins being awesome and laying down assaults. Great moments with the main six, well, with the exception of one, but I'll get back to that. Great scenes of the main six taking on, seeing Rarity at her best, and of course, seeing the Blight playing some underhanded tricks. It was just a really good one-chapter all-out brawl that highlighted perfectly the frantic pace of what a war could happen. And speaking of the ending, I love it. I love how Twilight used it and solved the problem. Because, well, let's face it, you couldn't camp that thing around. I was with Gellert. Even even if you did have Celestia and Luna guard it and put it in seals, well, let's not forget the elements of harmony were kind of sealed away too, and Discord kind of took that away too. Seals can't be broken, so even if you put that thing under permanent locks and made it so that way only somebody with a power of an alicorn could break in, there's a chance those things could be breaking into and stolen. And then who knows what could happen if we grabbed onto it. Who knows what a unicorn, say like Starlight Glimmer, could do once he had onto it. Oh, wouldn't you like to know? No, Starlight, hun, I wouldn't. And so, thus, you have a sort of dangerous situation here. Do you keep the gems? Do you give it to somebody else? Do you reseal it? If you reseal it, what's the point of doing it? What's to stop any pony else from going back and grabbing those suckers? Twilight's idea was great. You had this huge, gigantic, eldritch-like abomination that was absorbing everything. Attacks, magic, and even creatures. So, what did you do? Overstuff it. Well, I know we've seen this type of situation before back on the longing when the main six took Bloodwing out with the elements of harmony. This type of battle and this type of victory was still wonderful to see. And I love that Twilight kind of figured it out by using simple math, deduction, and reasoning. So much like her, realizing that, yeah, the creature was adapting to everything, so even if you were to use something that was a slow attack, like, say, the elements of harmony, or using the monsters like a one singular beam, it still wouldn't be enough because the creature could slowly adapt to it. Better use the Tears of Gaia as an all-out explosion. And the fact that they also shared the power kind of fits for our Princess of Friendship. Why? She's Twilight. She's going to make sure that everybody has the power of the Tears of Gaia. The pacing of this also served to help us build up the two races, the deer and the griffin. And like any well-developed race, I'm quite curious to see more and see how they grow and live. It's just that I kind of rather see the griffins more. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this as a knock on how the deer were developed. The deer were done great. We got to see their culture, and we got to see more of them. They just felt more closed off, distant, which I guess is kind of the point, as you saw at the ending, that they started to open up more. Heck, I even noticed they started to open up more and became better when the griffins showed up. What I mean is that they felt so cold and distant, and that was the way they were acting. Much like the elves of Lord of the Rings, sometimes they do feel a little distant. Even though they have art, music, and other things of beauty, they still felt so cold and separate from the rest of the world. So you wouldn't feel like you could bond with them. The Griffins, on the other hand, felt closer. They felt more human. They felt more like I could get attached to. Let me put it this way. It would be like if you had a party and you needed to decide you wanted to bring a Klingon or go to a Klingon party or a Vulcan party. Which would you rather go to? Personally, I would rather go with the Klingons because they are going to be more rowdy. So thus, and I also like that, technically speaking, the Griffins were not full-on dwarf-like. They were more like just capitalists and machinists. They were working hard, and they developed stuff. And they, of course, also had some good points about the Tears of Gaia and using weapons and what they could manufacture. And as we can see, their ideas came to fruition during the final battle. And now we come to some of the character bits, which leads me sadly to my only two major my biggest complaint about this whole entire thing. While the other main six did well, and while after some deep soul searching about the whole capturing plot, I really don't mind it, as the main six, as it was mentioned that Rainbow Dash and Applejack did give their all and did try to fight the Blythe, but got their butts handed to them due to sheer overwhelming numbers. And we did see later on that Applejack and Rainbow Dash were planning to escape before Yarrow and the others came by. That part I was okay with. But, well, this leads me to my two complaints about this whole entire thing. Complaint number one has got to be the scene with Fluttershy and what it came close to doing if the fic writer didn't actually give Fluttershy that chance at the medicalness. You see, I'm okay with Fluttershy cowering in fear. That's her character. That's who she is. And I'm okay with her being a medic pony. My problem comes from the fact that she did it too late in the fight. She did it right there in the middle of the battlefield. You would think that the moment they got to the battlefield, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, or Yarrow would have looked at her and said, you know what? The battlefield's no place for you. Go be a medic. You know, you'd think she would have started trembling in fear or cowardice the moment she saw the fight started. The moment the battle started, she should have been like, oh my, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then you could have had Yarrow go, well, you could be a medic. I don't know. See some pony get attacked. Okay, I'll be a medic. Boom. Problem solved. But the way it stood, it looked less of that. It looked less supportive. And more like, don't worry, little missy. I'll take good care of you. I'll have everything steady. And I really hate when that happens. But my other complaint, the characters. Oh, no. Every pony else is okay. It's Applejack and Star Swirl I've got problems with. Star Swirl comes from the fact that, well, while it was awesome that we got him to show up, while it was awesome that he was there to provide and help Twilight a little, I felt like overall his presence was kind of pointless. Generally pointless, if I had to be honest. It was almost as if I could have replaced him with any pony else, and I wouldn't have noticed the difference. I could have replaced Star Swirl with Trixie Lulamoon or Sunset Shimmer, and I probably would have gotten the same effect. Now, I know he was supposed to be like Gandalf. And to be fair, in The Hobbit, Gandalf was just didn't seem like he did anything. But at least Gandalf in both The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings did something. In all actuality. In The Hobbit, Gandalf was always going out and making new plans and setting things up so that way Bilbo could get the One Ring. Oh, don't act like you don't realize that. And in Lord of the Rings, Gandalf did things. To prison Casa Doom, bringing in the Riders of Rohan, being there for the entire fight of Minas Tirith, assisting at the Battle of the Gates of Mordor, that type of thing. We saw him do more, or offer assistance to Frodo, or help out get King Rohan out of his funk, that type of thing. Star Swirl did barely any of that. It was just like, hi, I'm Star Swirl the Building. Bye-bye. Even in the end scene where he was helping Twilight realize you can nuke the Blythe by overfeeding him, I felt like you could have replaced him with Applejack, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Piggy Pie, or Trixie, and I would have still got the same effect. Let's see. Oh my gosh, he's starting to fill up. Twilight, maybe we can overfeed him. And even if you say, well, he needed to be powerful enough to throw her, you could just easily write Trixie or Sunset doing that, or even have Applejack grab Twilight and treat her like Shining Armor treats Cadence. And speaking of Applejack, that's my other complaint. Have you guys noticed that some pony might have been missing from a lot of these scenes? I sure did. Yeah, Applejack. Applejack was missing. Well, not completely missing. She was there. She went, I held it. And that was it. With the exception of maybe grabbing the Tears of Gaia, which, again, that was a group effort. It was mainly grabbed by Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Fluttershy. I barely felt like Applejack did anything. She didn't say much. She didn't have that many scenes, and barely was a character at all. She was missing through a lot of this, and barely had any screen time. Throughout all of this, I was kind of hoping she would do something. Like during the siege back at the Blything's lair when they were breaking out. Applejack probably trying to push some stones or something. Nope. During the final battle at Servatus, Applejack is mentioned throwing stones, but beyond that, we don't get to see her do much beyond that. And she just goes, well, I helped. I throw stones. And during the final battle at Brasaka, she just pushes up some dirt. Beyond that, she barely says anything, barely does anything, and barely gets to help out. All the other main six get some really good moments. Applejack got nothing. She had 0 point to all this. And I feel kind of bad because that kind of detracts from an otherwise great fic. Another excellent, well-done fic. I mean, I love the bad guys. Mongo's had this kind of Megatron thing going through here, and that's what I was kind of hoping to illustrate through my voice. The other villains, of course, had this omnipresent, dark, oh my god, they're coming at me, and this corruption type of thing. We saw how different they were from the ponies, and we saw how menacing their attitudes were. It led to a very horrifying feeling, and you knew they were kind of intimidating. I also liked the Allfather, who was very, very hideous looking, quite creepy. And I also, of course, love the characters. My favorite from the Griffiths has to be Gideon, mainly because I always love boisterous characters. And Yarrow, well, and his romance with Flutters, well, I gotta admit, I was apprehensive at first, but if you have seen a lot of this show, you know that I have encountered a few badly done romances on this, namely Von Doom stuff and Myken. Especially Myken, as he has an OC where Fluttershy and him are like, I've known you for 5 seconds. I love you. So I was kind of apprehensive about this because, well, I was really worried. But the author did took a good time to actually build it up. First off, we did get to see more sides of Yarrow's character, so he did feel like he was something. He was kind of like a mix of Fluttershy plus, well, a little bit of the goofiness of a smart character. I kind of liked him, and I am glad he is together with her. And that's another thing. The romance was slow to build up. It wasn't like it was just 2 chapters, oh my god, you're handsome. It was obvious that Fluttershy took a while to get to know him and started feeling butterflies in her chest. And then after a few chapters, she actually went on a date with him, long walks through the forest. And it was slowly starting to build up. And on the next chapter, we start to see them getting closer together, but it still wasn't, oh my gosh, I want to bang you. And then it was near the end of this, we see that they're closer together and they've fallen for each other. So, yeah, it was a good build-up, and it was slow and nicely plotted, and it did build up on what was established. So I didn't feel like it was too much of just, we shall be, what is your name?
Giselle.
We shall be married in the morning! That type of marriage, Disney-esque, one night, and boom, I'm instantly in love with you. It did take a few chapters, and for that I applaud. It worked beautifully. The other main 6 did well too. Rarity probably outshone the most due to the fact that, well, she beat Gellert in those 3 challenges, showing off what she could do. Whiteheart also had a great imposing visage about himself, giving me a chance to go and be a little bit all at him and seeing his greater deep pain. Fluttershy had her great moments, even though she was a little unsteady through all this. when she became a medic and started helping out ponies, or had her moments with the dragon, those were beautiful. I especially love it when she saved Tharos through her stare, reminding us, or taking down those blight things with her stare, reminding us all that, yeah, she may be silent and timid, but you come anywhere near her friends, and she will take you down. She will own you! Then we'll apologize for owning you. And she will stare you down, and she will do everything she can to help, and she will not be one to be taken down that easily. Rainbow Dash, of course, had her cool moments of flying and showing off what she could do as an air assault team, and Pinkie Pie had her bardic knowledge, and Twilight, well, Twilight, of course, showed off her intelligence, her skill, her magic, and her unique ways of solving a problem. And of course, with the exception of Applejack, I do feel like the main six grew from all this. Rarity learned better how to become a better strategist. Fluttershy realized just how well she could be as a medic. Pinkie Pie learned new songs, and Rainbow Dash learned how to be a better flyer. And of course, Twilight grew a lot more in magic. If there was any type of complaints, I've already established them. But the complaints I listed about how I feel like Star Swirl and Applejack didn't get any development, and despite my love of the villains, I do kind of wish there was more. We got more. This was still a fantastic read. It was still a great journey to go through, and I applaud you, Roanoke. You did a great, excellent job. Not Roanoke, Redback Spino. I congratulate. I thank you for such an excellent job of giving us this whole entire awesome adventure that we've been on. Thank you for taking us all on this great ride. This fic was enjoyable and fantastic, and I recommend all of you guys to go back and watch the beginning. Now, join me for tomorrow as was that the knock on the door? All right. Hello? Message for you, Mr. Fart First User. Huh? What is it? Humberton. Wow. My local movie theater is going to have 2 free tickets to the first person who gets to Age of Ultron. I gotta go.
Well, Skylar, did you get it? Is he gone?
Yep.
Sweet. Oh, here's the microphone. Scootaloo, start talking.
Right. Hi, I'm Scootaloo from the King Market Sayers, and this is Apple Bloom.
It's Sleep now. Hi.
As you may notice, we kind of haven't had that much screen time over the past few fics.
We barely had a chance to do anything since, spending yours as a Skylar. Yeah, so we popped up and now it's a Harry Savior Worlds, but we barely got to do anything.
So, we're going to make up for it.
Over the next 2 days, we're going to hold up a nice little Q Marker Sayer fanfic convention. We're going to dominate the 2 chapters.
First off, we got a story all about
me, as I make a new friend. Called Sleepy Makes a New Friend. On Lion, after Lion, we got a rip-roaring adventure where we save all Pony Mail together. Q Marker Sayers fanfic subscribers. Yay!
So, join us with you as we here at the Tweetberry Memorial Library are going to present 2 CMC fanfics tomorrow. Woo! Coming soon. This summer. You remember how their story began. Dear Princess Celestia. All about how they defeated Nightmare Moon. The elements of harmony are right here! You remember their elements. Rainbow Dash, the element of loyalty. You'll remember who I am? I'm Applejack.
Darling, I would be so selfish. I can never leave a pony for now like this. It would just be unkind of me. Come on, turn that saffron upside down.
And you remember how it all began. But anybody who travels the multiverse can tell you, sometimes what you may know about their story could potentially be different. My name is Twilight Sparkle. I am the student of Queen Celestia. This summer, the Book of Harmony, Chapter 1, Friendship.